Okay, everyone, welcome on board Royal Nepal Airlines Flight 2 Golf Lima. Currently cruising over the China-Nepal border, actually. We've just come from Lasagongar, Tibet. On the left-hand side, I'm not sure what that is, actually. Very curious to find out, though, so I'm going to quickly go and have a look. This is, I think, Kanchenjunga. It's a very tall building in any mountain in any case. However, the right hand side is much more easy to figure out. If we look at the right, this is Mount Everest, Lhotse, Shishapangma and all of that lot. Actually, Mount Everest and Lhotse would be the most likely candidates, that one there. But we're coming in over the Himalayas, basically. That's another large mountain, I'm not sure which country it's part of. I think it's on the China-Nepal border again. But I'm not very familiar with what it's actually called. We're using Google Maps scenery updater so we can actually get proper ground stuff. And we're approaching Kathmandu. We're going to be, I've started this video a bit early because we've still got about 100 miles flight to go. But we're basically going to be flying the new RNAV runway 20 approach. It's a circling approach, but flown by RNAV, which is very nice. So yeah, we've programmed that already. I'll maybe run through that. And we can have a look at it. So, charts wise, we go over to VNKT, and this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the RNAV runway 20 charts. It's a little bit complicated and convoluted potentially, but basically there are three main points to start. We've got Igris, Rattan and Danfer. We're coming from the northeast, so Igris is our most logical point to take, but it also does depend on the standard arrival routing, so we'll check the arrival routing, but it's looking like Igris, which then follows into Sama, and then KT408, 428. We do an arc loop here to 4564, and then we come around here and we make a final loop to the runway, so it's basically a double loop. Now if we look at the arrivals, we're coming into waypoint Kimti, so this is the Kimti to Romeo arrival. This takes us to Munal and Rattan, which was an arrival point, but it's a little bit of a diversion from our path, and we're going to kind of come like that. Whereas if we look at the other Kimti arrival, which is the 1 Golf here, we come into Kimti straight into Igris overhead and looping around, so we've got a chance to look at the airport in any conditions. It's not looking good, to be honest. And then we'll make our approach. So we're going to take this one here, the Kimti 1 Golf arrival, and we're going to keep the RMP Zulu runway 02 active just in case we need to do that after a go around potentially due to the weather. The minimums on this are marginally lower by about 100 feet, so the runway visual range is a little bit lower as well. So the RMP20 demands that we have 3,500 meters of visibility. Oh, we've got traffic, friends. Let's have a quick look and see if I can spot anyone flying around. Just heard that there. It's about 20 miles before top of its head now. So look at the scenery, is absolutely fantastic. There you go, you've got Everest and literally flying past Everest right now. That is Mount Everest right there from above. Fantastic. Love the scenery in this game. Covered in snow, of course, as it would be in real life too. It's not really ever not winter up there. So yeah, we're circling around there now. We're coming towards Kathmandu, so we're following basically the main valley of Nepal, so to speak, where all of the rivers, and there's a main road that sort of goes down here. So it's sort of along there, basically. Yeah, so flight controls we can get rid of. We've got pitch trim 1.8 up. Cabin altitude 7250. Landing elevation is 4350. We've set the minimums for the RMP20, which is 4705. That's something you find here. We're a Category C aircraft. You'd have to find out the category of your aircraft, but if you're flying the Fenix Airbus, then it's obviously going to be the same. 4705 feet with a visibility range of 3,500 meters as minimum. So we need to be able to see 3.5 kilometers, which is not an awful lot actually if you've ever flown. 3.5 kilometers is not much visibility at all. Speed-wise, basically I'm going to say we'll engage the approach mode after the initial approach fix. That's at 11,500, and then the final approach fix mandatory 7,400 at KT 419, which is this one here. That's 3,000. And then we've got a long arc here following the terrain and then landing. Okay, so we need to do some landing calculations now. So we're landing at runway 20 at Kathmandu. Forecast is slightly rainy, so 20 here, weather, refresh, 190 degrees of 3 knots, 6,000 metres of visibility, so that's okay for our minimum. So we've got light rain, so presumption is it's going to be medium to poor actually. We've got few at 15, few at 25, cumulonimbus, scattered 30, broken 10,000. Temperature and dew point are the same, so that's contributing to the low visibility. Could be fog formation there actually, so potential for a diversion. Diversion wise, we've got fuel on board. I'm not exactly sure where to though. We're going to actually engage the descent now because the point's just come up, so there we go. Left click, right click, engage the descent. So we'll see there, we'll have a point where we'll intercept the path. We're actually pretty much on it already. Now I've got the meters displayed up here, that's from this button here, and that's basically for flying in Chinese airspace. We've come from Tianfu Airport in Chengdu, I think. I'm not exactly sure where we've come from. Flight plan, Chengdu Shuanglui International Airport. We're flying to Tribhuvan, and our alternate is Gorakhpur VEGK. So I will now actually pull up the information for Gorakhpur and see if we've got an ILS approach there, as that will be the only option if the visibility decreases. Okay, 58.6 plus 5.1, we're just getting our landing weight here, 63.7. So I'm going to put that in there, 637. Set idle, max reverse, manual angle flaps, apply METAR, and there we go. So low auto brake is potentially going to run us out because we're approaching at 4,000 feet. It's going to be a higher speed approach. The ground speed will be higher than normal. So there we go. So we now need to know we're going to use maximum reverse, and we're probably going to be needing in medium auto brake, and we'll have to be very careful with the braking there. So that's the worst case scenario, is we're going to overshoot the runway completely. So if we've got medium runway conditions, it depends on the runway conditions ultimately. There's no runway stages in here, so we could assume it's good, but it's probably going to be medium to medium poor due to the wetness, the rain, light rain contributing factor there. So I'm going to be using auto brake medium. We're in the descent now. I'm going to just continue the descent actually to 7.4. It's just nose diving to pick that speed, find that path again and get the speed up. We've got the CBs building, you can see they're embedded as well inside the cloud layer. Everest just on the right hand side as we're going past. Okay, so it looks like we're okay. Landing distance procedure, looking okay. Okay, so into the charts then, and we're going to look at our alternate approach. We've got ILS's on runway 29, which is very likely to be the one that's going to be in use. It looks like it's a 3-degree glide path, so that's okay. It's in India, so a little bit less mountainous as well. So this is our diversion. I'm going to also quickly find out the weather at the alternate, as that could be important. So the alternate weather, we've got no METAR available. Let me just see if VATSIM's got something there. So VEGK. Apparently doesn't exist. Okay, well that's grand. So there's no METAR, which is good. So I'm going to assume it's going to be runway 29 ILS Yankee or Zulu. Let's get VOR as well, Yankee Zulu. And SRA is not relevant because that's not going to be very useful, considering that we have got no controller online. SRA approach can only be flown with a controller, and it's basically the equivalent of a talk-down approach, PRA, Precision Approach Radar, PRR, whereby the controller vectors you to a final approach course, and as you approach your final approach course, he says something along the lines of cleared for the approach runway whatever. Do not acknowledge any further transmissions unless requested. And then he'll start basically giving you directions. Slightly left of centerline, collecting nicely. 9.5 miles, altitude should be 3,000 feet, etc. And he'll basically talk you down, giving you directions, 4 miles, altitude be 1,250 feet. Light left of centerline, correcting nicely. Slightly below glide path, correcting nicely, etc. Until you basically go runway in sight, at which point he will go, he will basically double comm, one to the tower and one to you. So he will comm the tower will comm via him to you saying clear to land, and then you will comm back saying clear to land, or acknowledging that, and that will basically go through both stations and the controller at the tower, because everything has to go through the tower controller at the end of the day. The approach controller, the Precision Approach Radar or SRA controller can't give a landing clearance, so it still has to go via the tower. So there we go, we've got ILS here set up. We don't need SRA, we're not going to worry about that because it's not possible on that sim. I mean, I've tried it a few times on IVO when I used to control there. It was actually quite difficult getting pilots who would be willing to fly that. So, yes, looking good so far. We'll just obviously have to see what the conditions are like at the airport. It's looking like a bit of weather ahead. So as we descend through into this cloud, I will put the seatbelt signs back on. Let's just hope that nothing happens to the plane as we approach 150. A little bit of a bug's creeped in with Sim Update 10 that causes random aileron fluttering left and right. So hopefully not, but we shall have to see. Okay. So we'll just continue this lovely descent here in the mountains with these lovely views. Let me put the cabin on actually. I turn the cabin off for the flight, it saves a tiny bit of performance, and it just means I can, yeah. Cabin visibility, let's go. There we go. Nothing interesting that way. There you go, that's the view we want. There's Mount Everest. There. Me in a plane, literally just going like this. Screenshot there. No, I want to get rid of the mouse there. Still got Everest in sight. There we go. I'm going to go back to the cockpit now. More drag, you say? Roger. Drag incoming. Now let's look at any constraints we've got here. 250 knots at Igris. And what was it I said? I would use Igris as my initial approach fix, so that will be the point where I will demand the approach phase. So it looks like it's quite a high approach. We'll be coming in quite high doing the circling here. Now let's just have a quick check of the waypoints. It's programmed already, so that's by doing flight plan, clicking on the arrival, going to RNAV 20, selecting the approach Kim T1 Golf, and then choosing initial approach via Igris, because there are a few waypoints here. Now we just need to check that this lines up with the action approach. It looks like it does because it's following the path pretty nicely. But we'll just go in here quickly and check. So the arrival, no, it's the start charts, RP20. So we'll make one approach at runway 20, failing that we will attempt runway 02. If we make a go around there due to any visibility or weather concerns, we'll divert. Right, approach briefing complete. Kind of. We need to do a bit more, but I've been talking about that all the time. So Sama 428. KT230, yeah, 430, 428, then it's a long arc, to 564. Correct. 03 arc to 564. And then 426. Correct. 424 should be next. Correct. Then 422, 421. 422, 421, 419. Correct. 418, 416, 414. 418, 416, 414, runway 20. Perfect. Okay, so that's set up there. Performance-wise, we've set our approach fixes up here. Speed-wise, on profile, we're just going to keep this speed for now. I'm going to actually engage this at Sama and fly. So you can see we're entering the weather now, so this is where things are going to get spicy. I'm just going to put this into night mode, as that's easier to see when we go into clouds. Config free, transition level is 135. The at 138, the landing speed is 133. Landing slightly heavy due to our long distance to divert, but that's because Kathmandu is not very close to anyone in particular. Seatbelt signs are going to go on now as we're entering the cloud and bumps potentially. I'm also going to put this to dim cabin lighting. At the waypoint Sama, we've only got 10 miles until the runway basically, and then we're just going to circle around and down. So a few more track miles. We're entering that cloud now, so expecting performance degradation from the MS as well. Okay, here is waypoint Sama, already pretty much there, so activate approach phase. So we now should be reducing down to 212 knots, 213 knots, which is our clean approach speed. We've got the vertical and lateral deviation already there, so I'm actually going to arm approach mode. So we're already in final app mode now. So the aircraft is now fully controlling the approach path. We're using the highest accuracy modes, and because we're already in the approach phase, final approach is now armed. So basically this 7,400 constraint will be ignored and the aircraft will continue to descend through it as we get to the relevant waypoints. So we're now approaching KT430. We need the speed to come down ever so slightly so that we can actually put the flaps in, so I'm just going to watch that slowly come down. There we go, as we start reducing the descent rate. There's 213 knots. That would be a speed check, flaps 1. Flaps 1 is now set. Here comes the vertical speed. So flaps 1 is just slats, which unfortunately doesn't do much for drag, so we might have to use a bit of spoiler to just keep us on the right track. The aircraft's now going to try and reduce to slat speed, which is what that's basically there. We're now entering the clag, so as you can see visibility is on and off as we go through these CVs. Well, they don't seem to be very active TVs, by the looks of it, so that's okay. There's no forecast of storm. So now descending roughly on the profile, we're going to start the left turn now. Let's see if there's anything online here. Doesn't look like it. We've got darker control, but I don't think darker is covering in the pool. So we've got a CV there straight ahead, and we're basically now circling around into this CV paradise. So let's see if we can get a glimpse of the runway. That should be roughly at our 9 o'clock position, so somewhere underneath the clouds. But you can see Kathmandu is now coming into sight. We've got the city below us. Speed-wise now, we're basically entering the equivalent of a downwind leg, so I'm going to set flaps to 1. Speed was checked just about. Sorry, flaps to 2, and that will slowly bring the speed down a little bit more as the flap setting now puts a trailing edge flap down, which increases drag as well as increasing lift. Okay, there we go. I'm happy with the speed, so I'm actually going to demand 160, as that's a pretty good approach speed, until we reach the basically final approach, and it's going to take a very long time. So we're now circling around, and we've got a lovely towering CB ahead of us there with a top at about probably flight level 200. So that's maybe something to avoid slightly. Right, we can now set the non-standard pressure, so let's check what that was first. The QNH I've set is 1010, so let's set that there. 1010 is set, and on the standby instruments too. Landing system, we can't need or don't use. We're on the profile more or less. Flaps 2 set, descending nicely with a 2.5 nose up attitude, which is good. Wind up here, 286 at 14, so it's in the direction of the runway, so the winds aloft are roughly matching to the actual runway that we've chosen, which is a good shout then. As we're descending into the approach, landing lights going on, even though we're a bit above the runway, 10,000 above ground at least. Oh look, a little rainbow, how lovely is that? Graphically indecisive rainbow, but oh well. So yeah, we're now descending around the bowl, and the runway 202 approach would actually come through these mountains here. So as we go over that, I'm just going to have a quick look at that approach path and see is that any good if we do have to make a go around. However, we're going to assume it's, well, not assume it's going to work out, but we could always end up with a go around at some point. In which case we need to fly the missed approach, which is straight ahead, an immediate right turn to KT 493 at 210 knots. And then we'll be back in the overhead and decide what to do from there. Descending below 11,300 feet now. Now we're looking for K19 at 7,400, that's this one here, so that should be at 7,400. If that doesn't happen, then we have a problem. But it should happen. Okay, we're getting a lag on the display. I'm just going to go and quickly check if CPU works better. So I've just switched the display rendering over to CPU, so hopefully we get some better performance. Okay, that's not lagging so badly anymore, just in case, because I was worried because it's been a problem with the display rendering basically, and that's caused the flight director to go haywire, which has caused the whole system basically to oscillate wildly between left and right. Okay, we're now effectively in the base leg, crosswind leg, sorry. Just going to avoid all these mountains here. If we're flying the RNAV approach, obviously check the accuracy. However, that is 0.03, so that's fine. We're 26 feet above the path, so that's okay. But we're descending through, so our approach will be through here otherwise. The scenery is absolutely spectacular, especially okay, let's have a look at our path then. I need to actually have a better look at the scenery. I'm going to save set flaps free. We're okay to do that because we're already at 160 knots, so you can see this flap starting to flap there. Wunderbar. The other one's doing their thing. We start to enter some more active weather now. You can see the rain starting to hit, starting to go into the cockpit. And disengage that cabin view because we're not going to need it for the rest of the approach. Okay, we're now in our downwind leg essentially, so 160 knots. We've got flaps free set, auto brake set to medium. Ground spoilers are armed. Ignition is going to stay there. We'll call for gear down at the 165 knots point here. And I'm going to turn off the cabin lights. So we'll just get the chart back up. There we go. So you can see us there, we're just flying along KT422 at the moment. Leaving that there. Kathmandu traffic, Royal Nepal 2 Golf Lima inbound KT421 for the RNAV runway 20 approach. Okay, we're going to start getting some mountain wind effects as we get in over the mountains here. There is our altitude constraint, but that's not actually going to do anything. I'm just going to go back into the cabin. There we go. See if that actually does anything to the... So yeah, we had a bit of a catapultic wind effect there. Back in here, descending slowly now. We need to make this one at 7.4. Okay, gear down. Flaps full. Should have maybe done that a little bit earlier, but there comes the altitude check. Altitude is checked. Looking to the left now for the runway. We're following this terrain around now. Flaps are already set to full. Speed brakes armed, spoilers armed, everything's ready to go, so I'm just going to let the aircraft fly this because there's no point in me flying it until we're actually visual. Let's see if any passengers will spot the runway before me. Okay, no runway in sight, but it's a nice gentle left turn the whole way down. You can see the landing gear. Oh, I wonder if there's a position in the plane. If I go far enough back I would actually see that. That's pretty cool.
Pull up!
I go away terrain. I need a terrain warning for this. I know there's terrain ahead. Let's put the terrain radar on. Oh no, system's off.
Terrain ahead! Pull up!
Yeah, go away. Sys. Yeah, so if I turn the system off or anything, I can't have any terrain warnings. So we know that there's terrain ahead, but we can't look at it because otherwise the plane will just scream at us.
Pull up!
Oh, hush. There we go. Okay, looking over to the left-hand side. I still can't see no runway lights. So we'll just fly this down to minimums, really. 4,705 feet. Progress-wise, 7 feet above path. Put this one to performance, so I've got the minimum zone on and 2 feet above. There's KT416. No more constraints now. This is following a glide path. You can see we're now going to dive through these two little hills here, basically, hopefully. We're looking for the runway. Kathmandu traffic, roll Nepal, 2 Golf Lima on final, runway 20. Okay, blind call there.
1,000.
Okay, now looking for the runway, should be over there. That's the airport buildings. Runway not yet in sight. Pappy lights, okay, we're visual, so we can continue the approach. Here comes the rain. I'm happy with this approach at this point. We can continue this for another 300 feet before I need to take over, but there we go, visual.
$500.
Very light winds right now.
100 above.
Looking okay. Slight reduction in the vertical speed, please. There we go, on final.
Minimum.
No more. A couple of bumps to get rid of that now. High altitude, high flare.
100.
Bit high.
50. 40. 20. Retard. 5.
Touchdown. Versus green. 80 knots, 60 knots versus idle. Runway looks nice and dry actually. Turn off the windscreen wipers. We're going to make a right turn here. Perfect. So, off for this light here. Braking action smooth. Grand. So flaps up. was the last taxiway, we would have had to do a backtrack. We'll get the landing rate in a second. Slightly overrun, but I'll check on the map to see that we didn't overrun any of the touchdown zone markers. I have a feeling that was a slightly shortened one. They may well have increased the touchdown zone. So into the view here, flaps up. Look at that animation, very nice. And the wing flex at the wingtip, very good too. Yeah, a little bit more oomph for taxi because we're at high altitude, so it's going to need a bit more, probably 40% more. Okay, here comes the wildness. This is troglodytes scenery. Very good scenery in terms of it's the only one. I'm just going to taxi to the international terminal. Let me check here. Starred. No, we need the ground charts. Parking stands and coordinates. So we've got domestic apron. International terminal is this one here. So I'm actually going to take this stand here. Stand number 6. As we've come from China, so we're an international flight technically. I didn't really fancy going down there into the ramp death zone. Okay, cut off the engines. Parking brake set. All that's up. Engines 1 and 2 off. Onto Volanta. Landing rate was with 1.02 G, which is pretty good actually. That's not too bad at all. We were on the first mark after the largest marks. So you've got your touchdown zone, which is the very large mark. Actually, I'll show you here where we touched down. If we have a look at window capture 2, which is Volanta, and I turn it on. There we go. So you can see this is the runway 20. We came in over here, right turn over the river, and then we came down the runway. Here we're about 100 feet over the threshold, so a little bit high, but descended quite quickly down. Probably flared around here, and we touched down on the first mark after the aiming point, which is spot on really. And we let it run out basically until here, taxied off, and we're back at the terminal now. Landing rate 299 feet per minute. That's not always so indicative of whether it was a good landing or not. The main number is the 1.02 G. The closer that is to 1, the better, basically. Right. Perfect. So I'll turn that off now and stop the recording.